What's going on, good people? And welcome to another episode of Beyond the I was about to say Beyond the Podcast. Welcome to another episode of Beyond the Resume. I actually did that last time. I had to edit this whole thing out. Man, I'm just happy to be here, man. This conversation is driven for the dreamer, and it's a reminder and a lesson to some to just own whatever it is that you want to do. So, people who don't know, my wife and I, in the family, just moved to the Seattle area, Washington State. And with the excitement of moving and all that jazz, it comes a trade-off, right? So we're moving from Virginia. We don't have our family anymore, as far as like the parents and the the grandparents and the support that we once had, even small support as far as like just a babysitter and things like that, right? Who play such a major role in just us and the things that we do. Because my wife and I, we like to go out. We like to go out, shake loose, hit the city up, and with that, we're not getting that anymore. So we're extremely creative in the dates that we have. So one of the dates that I put together for us was a few weeks back, and it was simple. It was just a series of questions that I wrote out on 10 slips of papers, and we put it in a paper bag. And the whole thing was, just for us to have a good time, but to do things that we typically don't do. Right? We have good conversations, but it's always around the kids and some initiatives that we want to build and so on and so forth. But it's never about the other person. So just a heads up to the fellas. It's a simple game, but it'll allow you to just talk to your wife at a different scale. And so we did this, and we ended up talking for at least 3 hours, man. Just talking and just understanding each other. And it was about our goals and aspirations, and what the drivers are behind it, what's the why behind those different things, and what does that look like for you, what's happiness, and all these different things, man. So but one of the questions that I asked her, and I'm going to end up asking you this as well, is what's a deep longing for you or a dream for you? And I asked that question, and my wife said that, one of the things she's always wanted to do was be on a major platform, like the Oprahs of today, right? A major platform where she could tell her piece, she can speak her narrative, speak her truth, and also share others as well, right? And she's actually slowly doing that right now with the Timeline Talks. So it's very fitting for her to identify that. But one of the things that we start to notice is that we say we want these things, but we don't put the effort into it. And this isn't a strive or grind hustle. It's not that at all. That's not even that type of conversation. It's more so we start to make our dreams smaller as we grow into different roles, right? So as we do more on the 9 to 5, or we become parents and this evolution of life and so on and so forth, the dreams that we once had that was our major drive and our major push become smaller and smaller and smaller. And one of the things that I said I wanted to do was I just want to be recognized for something, right? And I want to be in a place where my creation, the creative side of me is what produces and what, brings something into this family. And and one of the things that, she and I were talking about is we always have this dilemma between fame and fortune, right? You choose one. Which one do you want? Fame or fortune? Do you want to be an influencer or drive impact? Do you want to do this on a local level and national level? And I used to always say, man, if I could impact one person, then that's what really matters. But in trueness and the desires of my heart, I want to impact the masses, and I want to be recognized for it. And one of the things why I shy away from that conversation, because I don't want to come off as materialistic, because my whys are bigger than cars and clothes and material things. My whys is because I want my last name to outlast me. You know, I want the things that I do, the gifts that I explore and continue to hone in and refine. I want that to be the legacy builder. I want that to be the thing I hand off to my kids. And I don't want to hand off, chores and tasks and things like that. No, I want my kids to one day, their last name be even bigger than them. Right. So I used to make myself really small by saying, if I can impact one person, but in real, man, I want the fame and fortune that come with that. Right. I don't want the Kobe Bryant and LeBron James fame, nothing like that. But I want to be recognized in an industry. And I used to always shy away from that. And it was my first time having that conversation with my wife that I just said it out there. And I felt at peace with it, because along with that, I also pray that as we do mature and grow, that one, we don't make ourselves small anymore, but that we continue to be, good stewards with those gifts. I think that's the delta between saying that I want the fame and fortune, material things, and so on and so forth. The delta of what I want to do is my why is for that legacy builder, but I'm also reinforcing that I want God to make sure that as I do move into that environment, that I am still a good steward, that I'm still, on my North Star of, I recognize that, God, you gave me this gift for me to showcase. You gave me this gift for me to go out there and change lives. And that's the difference. And so she and I are talking, we're having this conversation, and I'm like, why do we make ourselves so small? If these are the things that we want to do, why aren't we just so unapologetically going out there and getting it? I don't know why we don't do that. I know with us, my wife and I talk about this, being in our mid 30s and being parents, with the just life, just things that happen, being, having kids and working and so on and so forth. Those things start to outweigh and become bigger, to where, as I stated earlier, now our dreams are getting smaller and smaller and smaller. But we came out of that conversation looking at each other of, hey, we're not going to make ourselves small anymore. We're going to make sure that we showcase the talents and the gifts that God has given us. But along the way, as these things start to mature and we get the resources that we want and the resources that we desire, because God truly knows the desires of our hearts, is that we remain humble, we remain steadfast in his word, and we make sure that he remains our true north. And that's the thing that we're doing. So this Mark Batterson, he has this book called In a Pit with a Line on a Snowy Day. I read it early in the year, and it's a dope book. And it's based on Christian principles, and it gets into, just risk versus reward and opportunities that come up, and we can't fumble them. And one of the things he also gets into is two types of regrets, and I'm gonna cover that in the next episode, because that one right there is really a message for my peers, the 30-something-year-olds who are right now trying to navigate what the next steps look like. You know what I mean? And one of the things he talks about is, we call it putting limitations on ourselves, but a lot of times too, with that same mentality of not going out there and just unapologetically being, applying our gifts to different things, what we're actually doing is putting limitations and casting ourselves on God. We're basically saying that we're not able to do these things because of our limitation, or at least our limited thinking of what he's able to do for us, And I think what happens is you get caught up in the now. We'll get caught up in maybe a lack of understanding that's currently right now, or we get, caught up in the lack of execution, or how do we take it to the next levels, whatever that lack is. We tend to make that like that foreshadowing of, well, because I'm in the current state now, I won't be able to get there. So what that does is put boundaries around ourselves and puts boundaries around God, when we really should be operating in the spirit of just expectation of, when this does happen, when I do get to this level, I need to make sure that I'm prepared in this matter. I need to make sure that I'm still me and that I don't deviate from what that looks like. And I think that's where we need to operate from. This conversation, I'll leave with these two things. I leave a lesson for the 20-something-year-old, and I leave a reminder for the 30-something-year-old. For that 20-something-year-old, because I remember when I was 20-something, I pray that you attack things just unapologetically, that you own your dreams and you don't allow others to stifle you, right? I know a lot of times, we share our dreams with our friends, our family, our best friends even. And because of their limited thinking on that certain thing, we tend to consume that and we make ourselves small. When the thing is, though, they're not supposed to get it because it's not a dream that has been planted inside of them. You know what I mean? But we sit here, and because we share this with a friend who doesn't share that same vision, we allow their doubts and their understanding to limit who we are, and also limit the drive that we have about those different things, right? So that's the thing that I want you to really focus on, is just understand your why and explore different things, and don't be afraid to fail, because when you fail, there are lessons in that. It's never a failure. I know that's a term that we always say, but it's never a failure. One thing I've never even showcased is that I showed the highlight. I showed the highlight on IG when my partner and I were flipping properties, behind the scenes with the camera, doing this, that, and the third. But what I didn't share is, yeah, we had some good successes, but we also lost 15K on one deal. And I'll get into that later on because there's a lot of lessons that I learned there. Now, at the time, bro, I was hurt. 15G is a lot of money. I was hurt. But we bounced back. We bounced back in our own way. But I was hurt, and I learned a lot from that lesson, though. I learned as far as like how to trust but verify different things. I learned that you have to fully understand that you can't work with everyone. All right, we'll get into that later on. Now, my reminder for that 30-something-year-old is, these you are my people. You're my crew. And it's a reminder to just go after your vision and purpose. And I know you get caught up right now with the family, the kids, the bills, and so on and so forth. But you have to get to a place where you fully understand that it's not about goals anymore. It's about vision and purpose. And I mean that. What I mean by the goals is you start to get into this place to where you're building someone else's dream, i.e. the 9-to-5, and you forget about what it is that you want to do. What I was saying earlier, your dreams get smaller and smaller and smaller because now what life has to offer, the things that come with life, the responsibilities, right? The burdens, now they become bigger and bigger. So you get into this cycle of always wanting the next thing, the next goal. And the next goal sometimes is not about the products that you have in front of you, or you trying to build for yourself. It's more so, how do I go to another gig and make more money, right? And you're worried about the outcome of that. And I knew early on, I'm making the most money I've ever made right now from a 9-to-5 perspective. And that's why I was able to let go of the real estate, because what I'm making now actually replaced what, I was doing with the real estate and also, working as an engineer. So now I've actually replaced that, which I'm very fortunate. And I feel so blessed and grateful for, to be in this position. But one of the things that I knew is that I will always be on this chase. I knew early on that if I went to the next gig, make more money, I would be there for a little bit. But then 2-3 years later, I'm having the same conversation of what's next. So, and that's exactly what happened. So I left the first gig, went to the next one. I'm like, this can't be it. Left there, went to the next one. This can't be it. And now what happens is you're thinking that you're wanting more money, but really is you're not getting fulfilled because you're doing something that deviates from your dream. Now the thing that you're building for someone else, i.e. the 9-to-5, is replacing your dreams. And so you're building someone else's dream, and now yours is on the back burner. And then what happens is 20 years from now, you're looking back and you're having regrets of what if. You're having regrets of, man, who knows what would have happened if I did X, Y, Z. And that's one of the things that Mark Batterson actually talks about in his book too. And I'm gonna get into that later on in the next chapter. Are those regrets, man? Those are heavy regrets. So I leave with this, and this is really a call to action, that you don't release or forget about who you are and what your true north is and your why. Because that's the thing that's going to keep you really going and keep you motivated. And whatever dream that you have, fully own it. Unapologetically own it. Understand that if other people don't understand it, that's okay, because that gift wasn't given to them. That dream wasn't given to them. It was given to you specifically for you to execute. And that's how you need to approach it. So once again, I leave with that. I'm praying that these things lead to some type of reflection, and that it leads to some type of retrospective where you could look back and say, all right, this is where I course correct. This is when I start putting myself first, and I start prioritizing what it is that I want to build, what I want to do, the legacy that I want to leave behind, because that's all that we have right now, right? And life is short. I've learned that the last 2 years, I've buried a grandfather, a grandmother, my nephew, a friend, and that's what really hit the hardest, right? When you start to bury people who are young, and it's not to get morbid at all in this conversation, but it's a reminder that you don't have time, right? we sit here and say, hey, we'll do this tomorrow or next year. But I'll tell you what, man, nothing is guaranteed except for death and taxes. So whatever dreams that you have inside of you right now, don't make them small. Don't belittle them. Go out there and unapologetically attack them. All right. I pray this falls on willing ears. And once again, thank you for listening to another episode of Beyond the Resume.